Welcome back with a smiling face. Important note before starting, if you are a fan of audio stories, then our Patreon account is the best platform for you. Join us on Patreon for the best audiobooks ever. Redeeming Himself. Episode 4. Chapter 23-30. Liam, why are you flaunting around with a traitor? Gwen said, standing up from an armchair in the sitting area. Goddess, why can't she just listen? Azalea stopped and turned to her, slowly paling as the blood drained from her face. Her eyes were wide, and she began to shake a little. I stepped in front of her, blocking her from Gwen's view. I told you to drop it, Gwen. This is none of your concern, I said to her, my anger rising. It does concern me if you are playing around with this little BH. Seriously, Liam, just because you aren't mated doesn't mean you need to stoop so low, she spat. Hold your tongue, now, Gwen, I threatened. We are supposed to be here watching the humans, and I find you here messing around with that wolf-less piece of trash. Do you even care about how that looks as alpha? She questioned with nothing but venom in her voice. Gwen, you need to go to your room. Now. You will say nothing more about or to Azalea, and you will be going back to the pack in the morning. Do you understand me? I said, letting my alpha authority out. She could not deny an alpha command. Don't think this is over. I'll be if I am going to let this little charade continue, she said as she turned and stomped to the stairs. I stayed rooted to the spot, watching her ascend the stairs. Once she was out of sight, I turned to Azalea. My stomach dropped as I saw the fear on her face. Her eyes were glazed over like she wasn't completely here with me. She did not move as we stood there. My phone rang in my pocket, and I silenced it without even looking at who was calling. Moments later, it began to ring again. I pulled it from my pocket, seeing it was Damien. Azalea, I have to take this. Just don't move, okay? Gwen isn't coming back here, I promise. I am just going to stand outside the door. I'll be right back, I told her. She made no motion that she heard me. I sighed and walked to the door. As I looked back, she was hugging her arms to her body. I walked outside and answered my ringing phone. This better be good, I barked. Gwen just called me losing it. I had no idea Lily sent her, man. Yet, well, any hope I had of getting Azalea to come to the pack is now gone. I am going to fix it, I am sending someone to replace her now, he said quickly. You need to come get your BH of a little sister. She's lucky I didn't rip her throat out right there. Okay, I will come get her in the morning, he said, trying to appease me. No, get her now. She knows exactly who Azalea is, and she isn't far from connecting the dots to us being mates, Damien. Who knows what your crazy sister will do when she finds out? I yelled. My anger continued to rise as all the implications of Gwen finding out who Azalea was and where she was began flooding my mind. She is determined to mate with me, and I wouldn't put it past her to come after Azalea to get what she wants. You're right. I am leaving now. Just get Azalea out of there, so Gwen isn't near her anymore. I'll talk to Gwen. Or I will call my dad, he said. She lays a finger on Azalea and being rejected will be a tickle compared to what I do, I threatened. Liam, breathe. Lily didn't know when she sent her. It was the middle of the night, and most of the unmated wolves were with us on the hunt. It was an honest mistake. But you gotta calm down, man. You cannot lose it in front of Azalea, he tried to reason with me. I knew he was right. I tried to take a breath and calm myself. How do I fix this? She is in there, probably terrified that Gwen is going to attack her. I vented. She's your mate, man. Comfort her. Tell her we are taking Gwen away. You are going to have to tell her what is going on, he said. She's going to freak out. She'll never agree to come to the pack, and she won't feel safe here, I said, beginning to feel a little defeated. Well, there is somewhere you could take that would be in our territory, but far enough from the pack house. She may feel safe, he said. Where? The lake house. It hasn't been used in a while, and your parents don't really go out there, he said. Damien, you're brilliant. Can you send a couple of she-wolves to clean it up and stock the fridge? I think I can get her there pretty quickly, I said with renewed hope. I didn't have to take her back to Packhouse yet. But I could take her somewhere I could protect her. Yet, consider it done, man. Go get Azalea, I'll take care of Gwen, he said. Thanks, I said, hanging up the phone. I stepped back into the inn to find Azalea gone. I began to panic a little bit. Where did she go? I quickly made my way back to the kitchen through the entrance behind the front desk. The kitchen was dark except for a small lamp over the prep table. On the prep table sat a covered dish and a couple of plates. Scanning the room, I saw the fridge was open. After a moment, the door closed, and Azalea stepped back, holding a couple of small glasses and a jug of milk. She didn't notice me standing there yet. She walked over to the prep table, setting the milk and glasses down. She filled each glass with milk before turning around to grab silverware. She then returned and uncovered the dish. On it was a delectable-looking cake covered in chocolate icing and some light brown decoration. I walked over to her, softly saying, "Azalea." She looked up at me with her wide eyes. Her face was a little puffy, evidence of a few tears shed. I approached her and took her face into my hands. "Baby, I am so sorry about Gwen. She is leaving tonight, Damien is coming to get her. Don't worry about her, I promise I am going to take care of it." She blinked her long lashes at me. "I think we need to talk. There are some things you should probably know." She nodded her head. I looked down at the prep table. "Is this the cake you made me?" I said as I smelled the air. The cake smelled like peanut butter and chocolate fudge. "Yeah," she whispered. I smiled at her. "Thank you. It looks amazing." "You are amazing," I told her. With that, I bent down and gave her a soft kiss on her pink lips. I released her mouth and said, "Why don't we take this back to your apartment, and we can talk and eat it there?" She nodded her head. I let go of her. She covered the cake and handed me the plate to carry. She grabbed the glasses of milk and headed towards the door. I followed her out of the inn and across the lawn. When we got there, she unlocked the door and walked in first. Stepping into her apartment, I immediately went on alert. "Do you smell that?" Gavin asked in my head. "Yes, it's faint, but someone else has been in here," I said back. I walked over to the counter and set the cake down before turning to Azalea. She had set the glasses of milk down at her desk and stood with her arms hugging her stomach. I walked over to her and wrapped her in my arms. "Are you okay?" I asked, feeling guilty. I did my best not to let her know that I sensed someone had been in her apartment. "No," she whispered as she buried her face in my chest. We had come so far, and the thought of losing her after all this was suffocating. I did not know what to do. I held her for a minute more before she continued, "Liam, I am scared. I don't want to lose you. I have never felt like this, and that scares me too." But when you are with me, I am okay. I feel warm inside and safe. Chapter 24. Azalea. I knew I had to tell him. Gwen finding out about us was not what I wanted to happen. Her words shook me to the core. It was physically hurting me to think about Liam rejecting me as his mate. Before I could think about it, I let the words fall out of my mouth. Liam, I am scared. I don't want to lose you. I have never felt like this, and that scares me too. But when you're with me, I am okay. I feel warm inside and safe, I said. He stiffened around me. Then he tightened his grip on me, and I buried myself even deeper into his embrace. He nuzzled the top of my head, and I inhaled deeply, basking in his calming scent. You won't lose me, Azalea. We will figure this out, he said calmly. We stood there embracing each other for what felt like ages. Finally, I pulled away from him and asked, why is she here? Why are there pack members at the inn? He gave me a guilty look. With a sigh, he said, this is going to be a long story. And probably a little jarring. We should sit down. I nodded my head. We moved over to my bed. He climbed on top, sitting his back against my headboard. Before I could get fully on the bed, he picked me up like I was a feather and placed me in his lap. With how serious he was acting, I cannot say that I was complaining about being close to him. He held me close to him, placing his chin on top of my head. I laid my head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat while I waited for answers. Before I start, I need you to know that I will not let anyone or anything hurt you. And I do not give a st what the rest of the pack thinks. I have every intention of being with you, Azalea. I am not going to leave you unless you send me away. I smiled and nodded my head. He was so reassuring, his words gave me small butterflies in my stomach. There have been a few attacks on our territory lately. Nothing crazy at first. We thought maybe a couple of rogues. But recently, we were led to believe it could be a hunter. He paused. I waited for him to continue. A few nights ago, a neighboring pack was also attacked. Do you remember Alpha Langston from Crystal Waters? I nodded my head. He was a nice man. He had been to the pack house to meet with Alpha Robert and attend gatherings a few times. He always gave me a warm smile and even held the door open for me once. I met with him about all of this. We thought we could monitor the situation, but then attacks became more frequent. We decided to come together for a hunt. Last night, we both brought groups of warriors out to search the territory. Did you catch the hunter? I asked. Not exactly. We found something but not the hunter. We found a sign on our pack's territory. That sign was a message to me. How do you know it was for you? I asked, confused. Because it had your sweater nailed to it. The one you wore on our date, he said solemnly. My body stiffened. My sweater? How? When? I jumped up from the bed and ran over to my dresser, where my clean laundry was folded in a basket, waiting to be put away. I began digging through the basket. I know I washed it with the rest of my clothes yesterday. I got to the bottom and didn't find the sweater. I looked back to Liam with terror on my features. How? When? I asked, fright evident in my voice. My mind was spinning. Someone had gotten into my apartment. I don't know. But he knows that you are important to me. Does he know what I am? That we are mates? I asked. I don't know. Is that why there are wolves here? Did you send them to watch me? He sighed. Sort of. They do not know that you are my mate or who you are. Well, they weren't supposed to. He got up and came over to me. I sent them here to help watch over you and look for anyone suspicious. There are also patrols running all around town day and night. Damien helped me arrange it. He had Lily help him in order to speed things up, and she sent Gwen, he said cautiously. I promise, neither of us would have sent her here. I wouldn't have sent anyone that would have been able to identify you. Damien? Lily? What are you talking about? I asked, confused. Damien was the beta's son, I knew that. He and Liam were best friends growing up. Damien picked on me but not nearly as much as his sister Gwen. Oh right, he said, scratching the back of his neck nervously. I had to tell Damien what was going on. I have been gone a lot, and he has been dealing with things in my absence since he is my beta. Lily is his mate. I don't think you knew her growing up. She was a year older than us and never spent much time in the pack house. And don't worry, Damien has already accepted you as my mate. He would never do anything to you, he said, trying to reassure me. Tears threatened to spill from my eyes again. This was all so much. Hunters after Liam? And now they were here and coming after me? And others in the pack knew about Liam and me. Dr. Ronald hasn't even figured out what is wrong with me or how to fix it. I don't know if this hunter will come after you, he said, hanging his head. His message made sure to mention that I couldn't protect you. I wouldn't put it past him to come for you to get to me. Alphas are like ultimate trophies for hunters. So, what do we do? I whispered, not trusting my voice. I think you're going to like this part even less. I need to take you away with me. Further into pack territory where I can keep you safe. My mouth dropped open. I needed to go back towards the pack. Back to the people who, like Gwen, rejected my very existence? Listen, he said, reaching out to grab my arms, I am not taking you back to the pack house. I will not make you go there until you want to. I am going to take you to my parents' lake house. They don't use it, and since we all grew up, it is pretty much empty. Damien already sent a few people over to clean it up and stock it for me. We will be safe. And the patrols won't come close enough to know who you are. I nodded my head, trying to process all this. I did not trust myself to speak right now as tears were already threatening to erupt from my eyes. Liam reached up and brushed a few stray hairs from my face and looked into my eyes. Azalea, I will do anything to protect you. I never wanted to force you to do anything you weren't ready for, but I need you to come to the lake house with me, he said, imploring me to understand. I closed my eyes and nodded my head. He pulled me into his chest, kissing the top of my head. Thank you, sweetheart, he whispered. After a few more minutes, I finally broke the silence. Do we have to go tonight? I asked in a barely audible whisper. No, he said. You can stay here tonight. Without thinking, I asked, will you stay with me? He smiled into my hair. Chapter 25 It would be my greatest pleasure, he said. I pulled away from him and looked into his eyes. I could see his worry fogging his beautiful blue eyes. I raised up on my tiptoes, moving my lips towards his. He reacted immediately, lowering his head to mine. He crashed his mouth onto mine, pouring all his emotion into the kiss. Waves of pleasurable heat washed over me as he continued to kiss me. I moaned a bit into his mouth, encouraging him more. He bent over more and picked me up by my behind. I instinctively wrapped my legs around his waist. He held firm onto my cheeks. The feelings of his hands was only feeding the pleasure coursing through me. He plunged his tongue into my mouth, deepening the kiss. He explored every inch of my mouth with his tongue, tasting every bit of me. I wrapped my arms around his neck, and my fingers gravitated to his hair. I ran my fingers through his dark locks. Suddenly, I could feel something hard growing against my core. I gasped and gripped Liam's hair, not expecting to feel his manhood like that. He growled into my mouth and continued his assault on my lips. I couldn't help the next moan that escaped my lips. One of his hands left its place on my A*S and worked its way up my back. He grabbed onto the end of my braid, pulling the elastic off. He worked his hand up, pulling my braid apart and shaking out my long, crimson locks. Then his hand worked its way through my hair and onto the back of my head, holding me impossibly closer to his kiss. I bit his bottom lip, earning me another seductive growl. I could feel his member growing even harder against my core. He moved back across the room and bent over to lay me on the bed, his lips never stopping their ministrations on my own. He climbed over top of me on the bed. Finally breaking our kiss, he moved his lips down my jawline all the way to the crook of my neck. Everywhere he kissed, I could feel waves of desire wash through me radiating from those points. That desire was going straight to my core. I had never wanted anyone so bad, and I had never felt like this with anyone. Liam, I breathed. He hummed into my neck as he continued to kiss and suck on it. I want you, I said breathlessly. He immediately stopped his ministrations on my neck and looked into my eyes, both of us breathing heavily. Do you trust me, baby? He asked, and I nodded at him. He smiled. Good, just lay back then, he said. He lowered his mouth to my hip bone and started kissing again. I thought I was going to burst. The feeling of his mouth on my body was the most incredible thing I had ever felt. His mouth traveled across to the other side before he made his way down my leg. Liam, I moaned. Kitten, you taste divine, he said, earning him another breathless moan. Are you ready, baby? Oh goddess, I moaned. Once my body had calmed down, he moved back up to my face. Smiling, he said, how was that kitten? All I could muster was in response. Liam. Don't fall asleep yet, I whispered into the top of her head. Do you think you can walk, baby? I asked. Even though we had not had S*X, I knew this was her first time doing anything intimate. I wanted to take care of her and make sure she would not feel any soreness tomorrow. I don't want you to be sore tomorrow, I said as I set her on the bathroom counter. I made sure she could hold herself up before turning around to run a warm bath. Once I got the water going, I looked around for some soap. I looked over to her, and she pointed at the small cabinet next to her counter. I opened it up, quickly finding some bubble bath. After pouring it into the water, I rid myself of my boxers and went over to her. With my erection still at full mast, she gave me a wide-eyed look. I chuckled again at her. Don't worry, baby, I said, we can take it slow. Plus, I didn't bring a condom, and I doubt you are on birth control. She shook her head, blushing. I scooped her up again and walked over to the bath. Slowly, I lowered us into the water, letting her stretch out in my lap. She sighed contentedly. We sat there for a bit, enjoying the warmth of the water. I slowly and softly caressed her body, starting at her thighs and moving my way up to her shoulders. She made the cutest humming sound as I rubbed her body. Feel good? I asked her. Yes, she said. We cuddled in the bath a while longer. I enjoyed the feel of her tiny body against mine. It was going to take some time before I could mate her properly. Just one finger inside her was a tight fit, and I thought she would snap my finger when she climaxed. As the bubbles faded away and the bath grew cold, I decided we should get out and head to bed. We should get out now. Do you think you can stand? I asked her. She said with sleepiness in her eyes. We both stood up and climbed out of the tub. She pulled the plug to drain the water while I grabbed a couple of towels. I slung one around my waist, then wrapped her in one. She went to her counter and pulled out a hair tie, pulling her long waves into a lopsided, messy bun on top of her head. We exited the bathroom when she stopped. You don't have any clean clothes here, she said, worried. Don't you worry about that, I said, walking over to the door. I opened it to find my bag sitting on the front step. Damien had linked me that he was leaving my bag back here, knowing I would be staying. I turned around, shutting the door behind me. How did you do that? She asked. I winked at her. I have my ways. She rolled her eyes and moved over to her dresser to find clothes. I set my bag down and dug out some clean underwear and shorts. I dropped my towel and quickly dressed. When I turned around, she was holding her clothes with a giant blush across her face. I am gonna, she said, pointing to the bathroom. I nodded at her, holding back a laugh. Now she was shy. She went to the bathroom and closed the door. While I waited for her, I picked up our clothing from earlier. I put her clothes into her hamper and my own in my bag. I grabbed my phone and sat on the bed. Now was about as good as time as any to check in with Damien. I dialed his number and waited. He didn't answer, but I immediately got his link. I can't exactly talk at the moment, he said. Gwen is screaming her head off in the car right now. So, you got her out of here? I asked. Yeah, and I will make sure she doesn't come back, he said. Great, thanks. Has anyone gone to the lake house yet? Yet, should be ready by morning. Whenever you can convince her. I did already. She isn't thrilled but agreed to go with me. Good, we can protect her there. You can't tell Gwen where we will be. Neither can Lily. Don't worry, way ahead of you. I also spoke with the little old man that runs the inn. Did you know he is a wolf too? Haha, yes, actually, I did. Well, I am gonna send a few she-wolves out here to help replace Azalea until all this is over. Figured we should not just take away his only real help. Doesn't look like he can climb the stairs, let alone actually run the inn. Thanks, man. Of course. She's my Luna man. Obviously, I am going to help my best friend protect her. I don't deserve such a good beta. You can make it up to me sometime. You coming back before going to the lake house? No, can you send some stuff over there for me? Yeah, no worries. Just get your girl safe, okay? The patrols are checking into a few possibilities on the hunter identity. That's fantastic. Keep me updated. With that, I broke the link. I am sure he had his hands full enough with Gwen raging in the seat next to him. Right at that moment, the bathroom door opened, and Azalea emerged. I would never get over the fact that every time I laid my eyes on her, she took my breath away. She came over to me wearing a plain white t-shirt with some green and blue plaid pajama shorts. Her skin looked pale and soft under her clothing, and my fingers itched to touch her again. All set, baby? I asked. She nodded her head as she came over to sit in my lap. I kissed her cheek affectionately as I maneuvered us onto the bed. She was so small that holding her was like nothing. We laid on our sides facing each other as I held her in my arms. I kissed her forehead one more time, whispering, "Good night, Azalea, as her eyelids drooped. I buried my nose in her hair as I waited for sleep to come. 2. Chapter 26. Azalea. I awoke to the sun streaming through the curtains in my cottage. I was lying on top of something very warm and solid. Last night's events started coming back to me, and I blushed hard, remembering what happened with Liam. I stretched my limbs carefully, trying not to disturb Liam underneath me. A low growl reverberated through his chest as his arms snaked around my waist. I giggled. "Good morning," I said. His eyes were still closed like he was pretending to still be asleep. "You can't just pretend to be asleep all day," I said to him. He peeked one eye open. "You're chipper this morning," he said with a smirk. "I slept great," I teased with a big smile. I got a small laugh in return. I wiggled, trying to get out of his grip. "Time to get up," I chimed. "Mm. Kitten, stop wiggling, or I won't be able to control myself," he said seductively. "You just gonna leave me like that?" he asked with a fake pout. "Yes, because I have work to do. And if we don't get moving, we'll miss breakfast." "What if I want you for breakfast?" he said with a smirk. I could feel my cheeks heat up instantly. He giggled and continued, "I'm just kidding, baby." "But you do look scrumptious," he said, winking. "And you don't have any work today, I already took care of everything." "What do you mean you took care of everything?" "Amy, Lemon, and I are the only staff for the inn other than the waiters," I asked him, confused. "Well, the old man is a wolf and understood when we explained that we needed to take you somewhere safe. We found a couple of replacements while you are gone. Don't worry, the inn is in good hands," he explained. I fell silent. I hadn't forgotten about going to the Alpha family lake house with Liam, but I was hoping to put it off. Liam stood up from the bed and came over to me. "I know this is all terrifying, but I won't leave your side, okay? You are my whole world, Azalea, and I won't let anyone hurt you," he said earnestly. I nodded my head. "So, when do we need to leave?" I asked quietly. "We have time still," he said. "It is ready whenever we are." I nodded my head. The thought of going back into wolf territory was making me queasy. It was almost worse than the thought of a hunter coming after Liam. Hunters chased down and executed supernatural creatures like us. They loved taking down the head of any group, alphas, sires, etc. It was known that they liked to take the head of their prey as a trophy. I didn't realize I was shaking until Liam wrapped his arms around me. "Please try not to be scared, baby," he tried to console me. I tried to relax in his arms. I let out a deep breath. "I have an idea," he said, trying to change the mood. "What is it?" I asked. "Ever had cake for breakfast?" he asked, wiggling his eyebrows. "No," I giggled. "Well, I want to try this amazing cake you made me, and we need to eat some breakfast." "Two birds, one stone," he said with a big smile. "You are a child," I said, still giggling. "Oh kitten, you just wait, and I will show you how much of a man I am," he said, his voice laced with LT. "Oh my," I whispered. I turned around before he could see me blush and went over to my small kitchenette to get some plates. I cut us some cake, giving him a larger piece than me, and we sat on the floor against the bed. He dug in immediately. Moaning in delight, he said, "Goddess Azalea, this is the best cake I've ever had." "What is this?" "It's a peanut butter cake with a chocolate ganache filling. I topped it with fudge icing and some peanut butter fudge roses and peanut butter icing." "You are a gift from the moon," he said, shoving more cake in his mouth. I smiled at him, taking a small bite. I still felt queasy with everything that was about to happen. After he finished, I got up to clean our plates. Once the dishes were clean, I figured I should probably get ready for the day. I am going to get dressed for the day, be right back, I said to him, heading to my closet. Once inside, I found a clean pair of capri pants and a plum button-down short-sleeve shirt. I pulled my hair down before I fixed it up into a neater bun on top of my head. I exited the closet to find him dressed and typing something on his phone. He looked up at me with a smile. I smiled back before heading to the bathroom to brush my teeth. After I finished, I walked back out and went to the kitchenette to make some tea. I needed something to ease my nerves. Liam came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. Being in his arms made me feel warm and less nervous. I closed my eyes, enjoying the feeling of his body around mine. "You look gorgeous," he said softly. I smiled. "Thank you," I said softly. "We should get you packed." "No rush, but it will take a good 5 hours to get to the lake house." "Why so long?" "Well, it's about 30 minutes from the pack house through the territory, but I figured you wouldn't want to go near there." "We can go around, it is just a long drive." I nodded my head. Thank goddess, he thought to go a different way. My nerves eased a little more. "Do you need help packing?" he asked. "No, I got it." "How long will we be going?" "At least a week." "Okay," I said. "You're amazing, you know that," he said, kissing the top of my head. I turned to face him, and he kissed my lips. "I need to run out for just a few minutes." "Do you think you can stay here and pack?" "Yeah, can do," I said with a smile. I didn't want him to leave, but I thought better of asking him to stay. "Okay. Call me if anything happens, all right?" "I'll be back soon, I promise," he said, kissing me once more. With that, he left me in my apartment all alone. I sighed. Once my tea was made, I went to my closet and got my suitcase down. I moved around my apartment, grabbing the things I would need as I slipped my tea. I had just grabbed a book from the unread stack beside my desk when there was a knock at my door. That sure was quick. I started opening the door. I expected it to be Liam, but it was John. "Oh, hi. What are you doing here, John?" "Good morning. I came by to apologize. Miss Amy said you were still back here," he said, looking behind me into my apartment. "Are you taking a trip, Miss Lee?" His gaze found my open suitcase. "Oh, sort of." "Apologize for what?" I said, turning his attention back to me. "About the way I have acted towards your gentleman friend." "You are right," I judged him. "Truth is, Miss Lee, I care about you," he said. "Oh," I replied. "It is just a little jealousy, I guess," he said, running his hand across the back of his neck. "But as long as you are happy, then I am," he finished. "Oh, John, that's very flattering," I said, a little lost for words. Why was he here telling me this now? "Don't worry. I am a big boy, I can handle a little rejection if it is the right thing to do. Have fun on your trip now, Miss Lee. I hope he keeps you safe," he said. With a nod, John turned and left. That was strange. I closed the door and returned to packing. I decided to push it out of my head for now. I had too many other things to worry about. Liam. I was so happy the little pharmacy in town had exactly what I needed. I shoved the bag in the glove compartment before getting out of my SUV. Damien had already messaged me that the lake house was all set for us. Hopefully, Azalea would be ready soon so we could get going. I walked back around the inn towards her cottage. To my dismay, John Henry was walking towards me away from Azalea's place. "It seems we just keep running into each other," he said with a dark look on his face. "What are you doing here?" I questioned. "Just checking on Azalea. She is a pretty little thing after all, and no one out here to protect her," he said smugly. "You don't need to concern yourself with her safety any longer," I said in a threatening tone. "Don't be so sure, now," he said. "Y'all have a safe trip," he said, walking past me. My mind was racing. How did he know we were going on a trip? Did Azalea tell him? Did she mention where we were going? We needed to be as discreet as possible. The more people that knew where we were going, the more likely it was for the hunter to find out. We didn't even tell the old man exactly where I was taking Azalea. I rushed across the lawn to Azalea's front door. I knocked rapidly and waited for her to open the door. Soon enough, she peeked through a crack and then opened the door for me. "Hi," she said with a small smile. "Did you tell anyone where we are going?" I asked quickly with no preamble. "No," she said with a questioning tone. "Then how does John Henry know we are leaving on a trip?" "He saw my suitcase. It's no secret that I never leave the inn other than occasional errands around town," she explained. "HMMPH, I responded. I believed her, but at the same time, people knowing she was leaving wasn't in our best interest. It isn't like he is going to go around town gossiping that I am running away with you." "John isn't a gossip," she said, stepping back into her apartment. I followed her in. On the bed sat a packed suitcase. "It's just important that no one knows where we are going. I didn't even tell the old man exactly where we would be. The only ones who know in the pack are Damien and Lily. The patrols being sent to the lake house do not know you are there." "Patrols?" she asked nervously. "Yeah, we will have warriors patrolling the area around the lake house while we are there to make sure nothing sneaks up on us." "Oh," she said timidly. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing, it's just, what if they see me and recognize me? Gwen isn't the only one who would be upset to find out that we are mates." I walked over to her. She peered up into my eyes with her large green ones. "Azalea, if the other pack members can't forgive you for something that happened 15 years ago and you weren't even a part of, they don't need to remain in the pack. You are my mate, and I hope that you will be my Luna one day. When we decide to tell the pack, they will either get on board or not. I will not let any of them hurt you, though. The moon goddess made you my mate and their Luna for a reason." She nodded her head before wrapping herself in my arms. The more she did this, the happier I became. It felt as if she was accepting me more and more as she sought comfort in my embrace. We stood like that for a few minutes before I broke the silence. "Do you need anything else before we go?" I asked. "I want to go say bye to Amy and Abigail. I know I shouldn't tell her I am leaving, but she is my friend, and she will worry. Plus, I am going to miss sweet little Abi." "All right. Why don't I take your stuff to the car and you go up to the kitchen? I will grab you in a sec." "Sure," she said, smiling. I grabbed her bag from the bed. "Anything else?" "No," she said with a small purse in her hand. We walked out of her apartment. She locked the door as I made my way back to the front to put her bag in my SUV. "Azalea." I walked into the kitchen to find Amy bustling away with lunch preparations and Abigail in her high chair. I went right over to Abi. She lifted her arms and scrunched her little hands to tell me she wanted to be picked up. "Hey, cutie!" I said, scooping her up. "Isla," she yelled. She hasn't quite figured out how to say my name, but her nickname was adorable. "How are you today?" I said, giving her a big hug. "What are you drawing over here?" I asked, looking down at her coloring book. She giggled at me. "It's beautiful, ABI girl. You are a master artist," I praised the sweet toddler in my arms. I sat her back in her high chair and turned my attention to a scowling Amy. "So where have you been, and why are you glowing?" she asked. "I don't know what you mean," I said airily. "Oh my god, did you give it up last night? Was it Liam? How was it?" she began to question excitedly. "No, Ames, we didn't have S**X. I exclaimed. "But I do need to tell you something. You are so not fun." "Okay, what is it?" "I am going to leave for a bit. Going on a trip, I guess." "That's sudden and not like you. Is something wrong?" "No, nothing like that. Just going to do something spontaneous," I lied. "Wait, are you going on a trip with Liam?" Yeah, actually." "What? Oh my gosh, this is so fast. My sweet little Lee is going on vacation with a boy," she yelled. "Where is he taking you?" I hesitated for a second. I knew I couldn't explain it or really tell her. "It's a surprise," I told her. "But hey, can you not tell everyone I went somewhere with him? This is all new, and I just wanted to stay close to home for a bit." "Fine, but you are giving me a play-by-play when you get back. You have my number on your phone, right?" "Yeah, you programmed it yesterday when you showed me how to use it." "Good. Promise you will text me when anything exciting happens." "Yeah, I will. Send me pictures of my best girl while I am gone," I said, looking over at ABI. "Oh, she will be all over that," she said with a smile at her daughter. Amy came over and hugged me. "Don't be gone too long, okay? Nothing works the same around here without you. Plus, I think the old geezer is going to burst an artery over the new people he hired," she giggled. I laughed as well. I guess she was talking about the replacements Liam promised. With a swift kiss on ABI's head, I headed out of the kitchen and to the front. When I got to the front lobby area, Liam was talking to someone at the desk. I walked up behind him, his large frame blocking whoever he was talking to. I tapped him on the back, and he immediately turned his attention to me. A smile crept up his face. "Ready to go, beautiful?" "Yes," I said, smiling back at him. "Great," he said excitedly. He grabbed my hand and led me to the door. I looked over my shoulder at who he was talking to at the front desk. There was a tall brunette standing there, giving us a curious look. I could not quite place who she was but knew that she had to be from the pack. I turned my head back around quickly, hoping she didn't recognize me. Liam pulled us outside to his waiting SUV. I groaned. I do not know how I did not realize until now that we would have to drive to the lake house, and it was going to be a long one. I could already feel the few bits of cake in my stomach churn. "Don't worry, I solved that problem," Liam said knowingly. We reached the passenger side of his SUV. He opened the door, and without expecting it, he turned around, picked me up, and placed me on the passenger seat with my feet hanging out the door. I crossed my arms and narrowed my eyes at him. Just because I don't like to travel in cars doesn't mean I was going to run away. He laughed. "No, kitten, I just am excited," is all. Plus, you're very light, he said, winking. He reached next to me and opened the glove box. He pulled out a small bag. And I want to show you this. He reached inside the bag and pulled out a small box. He showed me the small box, but I was still confused. What is it? Motion sickness cure. They are called C-bands. You put them on your wrist over the nerves in your arm, and they put pressure on the nerve. This will prevent you from getting sick. Wait, really? Yeah, he said with a genuine smile. My heart melted a little bit. He really did care and thought all this through. He knew I wouldn't be able to get through a 5-hour car ride and figured out how to stop the motion sickness. I also got you some medicine, but the pharmacist said this would probably make you drowsy, so we should only use it if the bands aren't working, he added. I smiled brightly at him. Thank you, I said. Of course, baby. I don't want you to be sick every time we get in a car. He removed the bands from the box. They looked like mini sweatbands with a button on them. He got to work adjusting them over my wrists. All right, you are all set. Try not to move them around too much. Ready to go? Yep, I said, leaning forward. His SUV was tall enough that when I sat on the seat, I was at eye level with him standing on the ground. I leaned forward and wrapped my arms around his neck. I pecked his lips quickly. He stepped closer and wrapped his arms around me. He kissed me back, sending a pleasurable warmth through me. Pulling away, he said, as much as I enjoy just kissing you, kitten. We should probably hit the road. I nodded my head. He stepped away, letting me swing my legs inside the car. He closed my door and came around the car to get in himself. I was a little bit excited to go away with Liam if I was being honest with myself. I don't know why, but I had a really good feeling about being alone together. Chapter 27. So far, this has been the best trip I could imagine. Liam turned on some fun music as we drove, and it wasn't long before we fell into comfortable conversation and laughter. After about 30 minutes of driving, Liam had reached over and held my hand. He hadn't made a move to let it go over an hour later. How you feeling, baby? He asked for about the 10th time. Liam, I already told you when you asked 10 minutes ago. I am wonderful. Not nauseous at all, I told him with a smile. Good, just want to make sure. If you need a break, just let me know. We can stop anytime you need, he reassured me. I smiled warmly at him. Before he came back to the inn, I never knew how thoughtful and sweet he was. The only time he had ever shown me any genuine kindness was the night my bedroom at the pack house was torn apart. I thought back to that time with a slight shiver. Everything was so different. I always feared Liam the most, knowing he would take over as alpha and would have the power to cast me out. It did not help how absurdly large he was compared to me back then. But the night he found me in the bathroom, he was gentle. Even if I was terrified at the time, some part of me felt better after his help. What's on your mind, sweetheart? He asked, startling me from my thoughts. Oh, it's nothing, I said with a fake smile. I hoped he wouldn't see right through it, and I was wrong. Your face betrays you. Please tell me. I sighed. I was just thinking about how scared I used to be of you, and about how different you were when we were growing up. I peered over at him, hoping he wouldn't be upset with me. A serious look came over his face. There is no excuse for my behavior, and I do not want you to believe I am making one. But, growing up as the alpha's son came with a lot of expectations. Expectations that were not easy to live up to. I grew up a lot after rejecting you, honestly. A lot of things fell into a new perspective for me after I found out you were my mate, he confessed. I looked down at our hands which were still intertwined, resting in my lap. What new perspective? I asked, not wanting to make eye contact with him. I could feel his gaze on me briefly before he turned his eyes back to the road. He remained quiet for a few minutes. Finally, he explained, growing up, my father never showed mercy or weakness. And our pack grew in strength. But there was always something that made us incomplete. I trained endlessly to live up to his expectations, to be a merciless and strong alpha. When I took the title, I slowly began to realize that our leadership was missing compassion. My father thought nothing of banishing you to be a rogue. He thought nothing of the fact that you could not have survived. He thought nothing of the fact that you had never shifted or were smaller than a wolf should be. Our pack respected my father as a strong alpha, but they were also afraid of him. I started to be challenged in small ways to test whether people should fear me after taking the title. I had to show the pack they should respect me but not fear me. It took a long time, but I think we are stronger now. There are still those who think I am weak for showing mercy so far during my leadership. As he finished, I could feel his gaze on me again. I wasn't sure what to think. If we hadn't been mates, would he have fulfilled his father's wish and banished me? Would I have been cast out of the pack to be a rogue? Would they have let me leave willingly? These thoughts swirled my head as I felt the car slow down and pull to the side of the road. I looked up at Liam, confused. After putting the car in park, he turned to me, grabbing both of my hands in his. Azalea, I want you to know that just by existing, you made me a better alpha and man. I cannot promise it would have happened quickly, but even if I wouldn't have found you as my mate, I don't believe I would have cast you out as a rogue. But it doesn't matter now. That night, my birthday, my entire world shifted. I saw everything in a new light, including myself. My father failed in being an alpha and raising me to be one. It should have never been a question of rejecting you. I could feel tears threatening to spill over my lashes as he finished. Liam let my hands go to undo my seat belt. He then grabbed me by my waist and picked me up, transferring me to his lap like I weighed nothing. He pulled me into his chest and hugged me close. Finally, he whispered, I just want to be a better man for you. I want to be someone who deserves you. I looked up at him with stray tears staining my face. Thinking about my childhood and living in the pack hurt and scared me. Thinking about his rejection was even worse. But to know he truly wished things had been different and he was different than his father shifted something in my heart. I reached up and placed my hand on his cheek, kissing him fiercely. I wasn't ready to tell him I loved him, but I could kiss him, so I did. He mirrored my kiss with just as much feeling, tangling his fingers into my hair and holding my head to his. When we finally broke apart, he leaned his forehead against mine as we caught our breaths. He ran his fingers soothingly over my cheeks. I don't deserve you, he whispered. I shook my head at him. He sighed as if he knew what I would say, and he didn't want to argue. With that, he gave me a swift kiss on my forehead before transferring me back to the passenger seat. We should keep moving, he said, starting the car. He once again intertwined our fingers and lay our hands in my lap. His thumb soothingly schemed the top of my knuckles back and forth. Neither of us had much to say now, so we listened to the radio as Liam continued our drive. At some point, my eyes began to droop, and I fell into a light sleep. What felt like only minutes later, I felt my body lifted out of my seat and into a warm, comfortable chest. I inhaled deeply, comforted by the soothing forest scent. My eyes fluttered open, and I looked up into a pair of crystal blue eyes. "You can sleep, baby," he said with a smile. I nodded my head, snuggling further into his chest. That earned me a soft chuckle that resonated throughout his broad, muscular chest. I felt him carrying me into the house. After a few moments, he laid me on the softest bed I had ever felt before, covering me up. I reached out to grab his hand. Before I could say anything, he said, "I will be right back, kitten. I just want to get your bag from the car. Stay right here, okay?" I agreed, releasing his hand. I snuggled deeper into the blanket, enjoying the luxurious bed. Only a few minutes later, I felt the other side of the bed shift, and Liam's comforting scent surrounded me. It was quickly followed by his arms pulling me into his warm, hard chest. My body melted into his as I let myself fall into a beautiful, deep sleep. Chapter 28. Liam. After getting her bag from the car and quickly linking the patrol around the property, I made my way back into the master bedroom to Azalea. She looked so peaceful and adorable with her petite body curled up on the massive bed. I intended to get a little work done, but I could not resist getting in bed with her. I removed my shirt and climbed in on the other side of the bed. Pulling her soft body to me, I held her in my arms, just drinking in her delicious aroma. "We need to mate her," Gavin prompted in my head. "She isn't ready," I told him. "We will be stronger once we complete the mate bond and mark her. Then we can protect her even better," he tried to reason. His insistence didn't feel normal. "She is protected. She is right here with me, and there are no less than 8 wolves running around this place at all times. And almost no one knows where we are right now. I don't have a good feeling about this. I feel like there is danger just outside our view," Gavin warned. "I have the same feeling." I agreed. "Mate her, or I will," Gavin said with finality. One thing was for sure, I would not be letting him anywhere near Azalea. She wasn't ready for me, let alone him. For now, I would take a nap with my wonderful mate held close to me. I felt light sparks igniting in small circles on my chest. As I woke from my nap, I kept my eyes closed, enjoying the exquisite feeling of Azalea running her fingers against my skin. It was only a few more moments before my members stood at attention and a gentle growl emanated from my chest. A sweet giggle opened my eyes to take in the gorgeous sight before me. Azalea's vibrant green eyes peered into mine. Her soft, pale skin almost glowed in the soft light coming through the windows thanks to the sunset coming over the lake. Her smile was radiant and sweet, and I wanted every moment of my being to be filled with it. We were still cuddled together, only now her body was facing mine. Careful kitten," I said, teasing her. Her eyes immediately grew and darted south. The blanket was still over my waist, but that did not hide the erection that was growing under her innocent touching. I chuckled at her naivety. "I am just teasing. I would never try anything if you didn't ask me for it, baby," I tried to reassure her. She gave me a smile, then reached her small face up to mine, gracing me with a soft kiss on my cheek. "I know," she said softly, lowering herself back down. She laid her head on my chest and continued her fingers mindless wandering over my bare chest as I held her body to mine. I just enjoyed the feeling for a few more moments. Reaching my other arm over to the side table, I grabbed my cell phone and looked at the time. "Wow, it's already dinner time. Are you hungry, baby?" I asked her, peeking down. "Yeah, actually," she said. "Want to make dinner with me?" I asked. She giggled. "Is it because you only know how to make macaroni and cheese?" She was not entirely correct. I can cook a few more things. But I thought it might be fun. Plus, I like you in my sight at all times, I said. I rolled her onto her back and positioned myself over her. I ran my nose along her neck and shoulder, breathing in her delicate scent. You really do smell amazing. What do I smell like? She asked. Flowers, and cinnamon. It's the most intoxicating thing I have ever smelled, I told her. She smiled even larger. We should go cook, or I will never let you leave this bed, I said, smiling back at her. She nodded her head. With a quick peck on her nose, I got out of the bed and retrieved my shirt. After putting it on, I turned to find her sitting on the side of the bed with her legs hanging over the side. Shall we? I asked. She nodded her head, hopping down from the bed. Azalea. We went downstairs to the kitchen. So, what are you hungry for? I asked, looking at Liam. Just depends, what's on the menu, he replied with a seductive grin. For a split second, his blue eyes flashed dark with LT. I began. Sorry. I am just teasing, he said with a half smile. He walked over to the fridge and opened the door. How about tacos? Sure. Got any flour? I could make us some fresh tortillas. I said nervously. Something about the look in his eye made me a little on edge. I think that can be arranged, he said with a smile. He pointed me to the pantry door while he began pulling ingredients out of the fridge. I started to dig in the pantry to find some baking ingredients. Luckily, I was right, and everything we needed was inside. I got to work making dough on the little island in the kitchen while Liam busied himself with some meat on the stove behind me. That smells good, I said as the meat started to sizzle in the pan. I felt arms go around my waist as I rolled out parts of the dough. Not as good as you, he said seductively in my ear, sending a chill down the back of my neck. I felt his lips skim my ear, making me squirm. Oh! I said. Haha. I'll stop teasing you, he laughed. He turned around to the stove to go back to the meat he left cooking. He was up and down right now, and it was making my head spin trying to keep up. As I finished rolling the tortillas out, my mind was reeling. Last night was amazing and felt so right, but at the same time, I was not sure we should move any faster. I hadn't had a moment to breathe since Liam crashed into my life. My heart wanted him, but my head was telling me not to get comfortable. Got room for these? I asked, turning around to the stove and Liam. He smiled warmly at me, all trace of his lusty teasing gone. Yes, ma'am. Right there, he said, pointing at the warmed pan ready for the tortillas. I smiled at him. Perfect, I said, putting the first couple of tortillas on. I needed to take this one step at a time, and hopefully, Liam would understand. He was breaking through the walls I had built throughout my life to keep me safe, and it was scaring me. Need any help? I asked him. Sure. Could you cut up the vegetables? He said, pointing to the tomatoes, lettuce, and avocados on the counter next to us. Easy, I said. As the tortillas cooked, I began prepping the vegetables. Why don't we finish this up and take it to the bedroom? We could put on a movie and eat in bed, he suggested. Sure, I said with a smile. Even with a nap today, all the stress about being in wolf territory again and worrying about Liam and me had me very tired. Liam finished up the meat as I finished the vegetables. We made our plates. Why don't you take these upstairs, and I will grab some drinks and meet you there, he said, handing me both plates of food. Sure, I said, grabbing them. "See you in a minute," he said. Just then, we heard a bang coming from the front. I jumped slightly but managed not to spill the food. I looked back to Liam. I didn't think we should be expecting anyone. Liam's eyes were dark as he stared towards the front of the house, confirming my thoughts. His face was full of rage, and it ignited fear in my stomach. "What was that?" I started. "Go upstairs. Now. Do not come down," Liam said in a harsh growl. His voice was much lower than it was just a few minutes ago, and he almost sounded like a different person altogether. "Liam," I said, scared. He swiftly turned his gaze towards me. "Now, Azalea," he commanded. His eyes were dark again, they were like midnight blue. His face was hard and unrelenting. I ran from the kitchen back to the bedroom we had been in earlier. I shot through the door, closing it quickly behind me. I looked around, not sure what to do. I noticed an envelope sitting on the bed. Had that been there? I walked over to it. In careful handwriting, the envelope read Azalea. With a shaking hand, I picked it up and turned it over. There was a wax seal on the back with a pink azalea flower upon it. Whoever left this did this intentionally. I opened the envelope and pulled out the letter inside. "Your parents made a deal. And soon, you will be mine, little flower." I dropped the letter on the bed and backed away. Tears welled in my eyes as fear coursed through me. What did that mean? What deal had my parents made? Who left this here? My back hit something solid. As my mind reeled with unanswered questions, I heard a loud, angry growl from downstairs. I knew it immediately as a wolf growl. I turned to look for a place to hide. I ran into the bathroom. I opened the shower door, hoping its frosted glass could hide me. I curled into a ball in the back corner, trying to make myself as small as possible. Silent tears streamed down my face as I held my eyes shut as tightly as I could. Chapter 29. Liam. Gavin had been badgering me since we woke up. I know he feels the need to mate with Azalea, but we cannot just take her. It has to be her choice, or we will lose her forever. His pestering is starting to get hard to control. For a moment there, he began to take over and tease Azalea. Hopefully, I hit it well. "Why don't we finish this up and take it to the bedroom? We could put on a movie and eat in bed," I suggested. If I could get Azalea to fall asleep soon, I could go out for a run and have Damien stay here with her. Maybe if I let him out for a little while, Gavin would be less aggressive about this mating thing. "Sure," she said, giving me a small smile. I could tell there was a little bit of awkwardness in the atmosphere of the kitchen. I spent half the time we were cooking trying to keep Gavin down. He was determined to take her over the counter if it meant we mated. "Why don't you take these upstairs, and I will grab some drinks and meet you there," I said, handing her the plates of food as we finished. "Sure," she said, taking them from me. "See you in a minute," I started to say when a loud bang came from the front door, far louder than a knock should be. Gavin immediately jumped to the surface, overpowering me. Azalea jumped, and I could sense her fear almost instantly. "What was that?" she started in a hushed tone. "Go upstairs. Now. Do not come down," Gavin growled at her. I continued to try to get control back, but he was not relenting. He felt she was in danger and wasn't going to relent. We both knew that no one should know we were here. "Liam," she stuttered, the fear evident in her voice. "I never wanted her to be afraid around us. You need to calm down now. We don't have time for that now. We must protect her." "Gavin," she's more terrified of you right now than whatever that is. I don't care. He swiftly turned his gaze towards her. Now, Azalea, he commanded. She turned and ran from us back towards the bedroom. I could hear the Alpha authority and hoped it wasn't affecting Azalea. You need to get it under control now. She is never going to trust us if you scare her anymore. I tried to no avail to reason with Gavin. Gavin stalked to the front door, claws beginning to grow from our hands. No one hurts my mate, he said. He ripped the front door open with a bang. Looking around, there was nothing. No sign of any trespassers. Looking down, we noticed a vase of flowers. Picking it up, I realized they were azaleas. They were pink and white, just like the ones I had brought her on the night of our date. There was a note attached. Are you so sure she is safe? That little flower won't be yours for long, Alpha. Gavin let out a thunderous growl that echoed through the trees around us. Gavin looked around wildly, searching for any sign of the trespasser. You need to calm down now. We need to link Damien and the patrol. You need to let me go to Azalea now. I shouted at him. I will keep her safe. She needs mated now so no one can take her from us. We'll be stronger. He argued. I know. But if we don't want to lose her, we have to do this her way right now. My cell phone rang as we argued. What? Gavin answered, screaming into the phone. What the hell is going on over there? The patrol said they heard growls coming from the house, Damien replied in an irritated voice. Trespasser, Gavin spit at him. Little less hostility, okay? What do you mean trespasser? The patrol hasn't reported anything out of the ordinary, he said. Gavin, give me back control now. I tried desperately, fighting him for control. Hello? Liam, what is going on? Are you there? Damien called through the phone as I wrestled with Gavin. Finally, I got control back. Yeah, I am here. I am gonna send you a photo. Tighten the patrol, I said and hung up. I quickly snapped a photo of the flowers and note and sent them to Damien. My phone immediately pinged with a message that just read. I needed to find Azalea now. I brought the flowers inside and deposited them into the trash can. I went to the bedroom, hoping that was where she went. The door was closed, and I knocked lightly to see if she would open the door. After a moment of no answer, I softly opened the door, whispering, Azalea, baby, are you in here? Looking around, I saw nothing. I shut the door quietly behind me and walked towards the bed. Was she hiding? Azalea, everything is okay. Where are you, baby? I said calmly but a little louder. I still heard nothing. If we were mated, you would know where she is. You wouldn't need to call for her because we would feel her. Gavin nagged at me. He clearly was not happy that I was back in control for now. I tried to push him down as I looked around for signs of her. I noticed an envelope on the bed. Walking over to it, my stomach dropped as I saw her name on it. There was a letter next to it. I read the short letter, and fury surged through me. No one will take her from us. Mark her. Gavin raged in my head. I could feel him trying to burst through the surface again. I won't let that happen, but you need to calm down now. I shot back at him. I need a little more time. Don't you want to meet her, Wolf? I tried to reason with him. He did not seem to have a response to that. I knew he wanted her Wolf to emerge so he could have his true mate as well. Unfortunately, he was the more primal of the two of us, and reason did not always apply to him. Trying to calm myself, I looked around. Azalea had to be here somewhere. I could hear a faint heartbeat that sounded like it was coming from the bathroom. I went to the door and knocked gently. Azalea, are you in here? I asked through the door. I got no response. Azalea, I need to know you're okay. Please. I tried again. I still got no response. I turned the knob to discover the door was unlocked. Using my wolf hearing, I tried to locate the source of the heartbeat. I looked around the large bathroom. There were not many places to hide. I noticed the sound coming from the shower. I walked over to the frosted glass doors. Although I couldn't see through the door, I knew she was inside. Azalea, baby, it's okay. You can come out now. No one is here, I said, trying to get her to respond. No sound came from the other side of the door. Taking my chances, I opened the door just enough to peek in. In the corner, Azalea was curled up in a ball with her knees to her chest. As I opened the door, her head shot up, her eyes wide and face tear-stained. I rushed forward, crouching down in front of her. Her face was wrought with terror and helplessness, and pain surged through my chest. I reached for her to pull her into my arms and comfort her, but she immediately tried to shrink away. Azalea, I whispered. She shook her head. No one is here, I am not going to let anyone get to you, I tried reassuring her. She shook her head again, fear still evident in her eyes. I racked my brain, trying to figure out what had scared her so bad. She heard me, Gavin said. Oh goddess, no. T. I told you to calm down, and you just couldn't control yourself, I yelled at him. I won't apologize for keeping our mate safe. But you didn't. You petrified her. Now she won't even let me touch her. I blocked him out to turn my focus back on Azalea. Baby, why are you scared? I asked her gently. She looked back at me, tears still brimming her eyes. Was it the note? I tried again. Maybe if I could get her to speak and tell me what was wrong, I could calm her down. She nodded her head slightly. I won't let anyone take you from me, baby. I won't let anyone hurt you ever, I said. She looked at me, eyes still wide. There is nothing to be afraid of, I promise. I looked into her face for a minute, willing her to say something. Her eyes were red and puffy, her cheeks tear-stained. I hate when she cries, I hate that she is scared. I hate that someone is trying to get to her. Finally, I stood and said, wait right here, okay? I'll be right back. I calmly turned and exited the bathroom. First, I went to the bed, grabbing the note. I read it again. Maybe my father can shed some light on this later. I don't know much about her parents and how they died, so I don't know what deal could have been made concerning Azalea. I took the note to my bedside table and hid it in the drawer. Next, I ran down to the kitchen and made a cup of tea for her. If she was scared and upset, this might help her calm down and relax. I went back upstairs and set the tea on her bedside table. I pulled an extra blanket and pillow from the closet and set them on the couch. If she was afraid of me because of Gavin, I would need to give her distance. I don't know that I could leave her in here alone, but I could sleep across the room. I went into the bathroom and pulled a washcloth from the linen cupboard. I ran it under some warm water to wet it and wrung it out. I took a deep breath before gently going back into the shower. She sat in the corner still, her face buried in her knees again. She looked so small and helpless, it made my chest ache. When she realized I was there, her head popped up. She didn't flinch away as I came closer this time. I held up the washcloth to show her. She didn't move as I brought it to her cheek. "Let me take you to bed, okay? I made you some tea," I said as I lightly wiped her cheeks with the warm washcloth. After a moment, she nodded her head just a bit. I couldn't help the small smile come across my lips. I finished wiping the salty tears from her face and lay the washcloth down. I moved a bit closer to her so I could pick her up. I scooped her tiny frame up into my arms. She stayed tense but turned her face into my chest. I could feel her heartbeat slow as she breathed into me, our bond calming her body. I carefully carried her into the bedroom and over to the bed. I set her down gently on the bed, grabbing the blanket to wrap around her. I knelt in front of her and grabbed her teacup for her. She took it in her hands, not making eye contact with me. I brought my hand up to her face, grazing my thumb across her soft cheeks. "You are my whole world, Azalea. I will not let anyone hurt you or take you away from me," I said, hoping she believed me. Her eyes moved towards the end of the bed where the note had been lying. Her eyes lingered there for a moment before moving back. She still did not look at me. "Maybe we should get some sleep? I doubled the patrol tonight so no one can get close to us," I told her. She nodded her head, and I stood up. She took a sip of her tea and set it on the bedside table. I went to move away from her and was immediately stopped by her hand around my arm. Her eyes looked up into mine. "I am just going over to the couch, I don't want you to be uncomfortable," I said. Her grip tightened, and I could see tears starting in her eyes again. "She thinks you're rejecting her, jackass," Gavin spat at me. "No, baby, I am not leaving you," I said, trying to reassure her. She didn't drop her hands. I knelt on the floor again, bringing myself to her level. "Sweetheart, please tell me what is going on in that pretty head of yours? I am dying here," I pleaded with her. She took a deep breath like she was preparing herself. "Who was the wolf?" she asked. I gulped. That was sort of me. It was Gavin, actually. Gavin is my wolf, and when we heard the bang on the door, he took over. It was just a warning to anyone thinking about coming for us, baby, and I promise he will never hurt you. "Your wolf took control?" she asked. I nodded. She paused for a moment like she was mulling something over. "Can I meet him?" she finally asked. Chapter 30. Azalea, your wolf took control. I asked Liam, not understanding what he meant. He nodded his head at me, his eyes still wary. "I thought a wolf could only take control when we shifted, I did not know they could control our bodies when we were still human. Apparently, there was more to having a wolf than I knew. But it was sensible, seeing as I never paid much attention to what we were taught in school about being a werewolf. I never felt the need once my wolf left me. Finally, I resolved to ask, "Can I meet him?" Liam's mouth dropped open. I had obviously shocked him with my question. I was still on edge from the note and everything, but I couldn't help my curiosity. I was beginning to know Liam much better, but I knew nothing about his wolf. I don't. Maybe that's not such a great idea right this moment," he finally managed to say. I nodded my head. Maybe this was a more personal thing. It's just he is a little on edge after earlier, and I know he would never intentionally hurt you, but I don't want to take the chance right now, he continued. "Okay," I said, nodding. I let go of his arm that I was still grasping. This was all beginning to be too much for one night, and I really wanted to go to sleep. As if he read my mind, Liam said, "Let's go to sleep and talk in the morning, okay?" I nodded my head with a small smile. I did not want to talk about all this right now. He stood up and moved towards the couch again, where I noticed a pillow and blanket lying. "Wait," I said, confused. He turned and looked at me. "Why?" I said, pointing to the couch. "You were so afraid." "I didn't want to force you to be with me if you didn't want to," he said, a little sad. "No, please don't leave me," I said quietly. Although I was frightened of his wolf, I was more afraid of whoever left that note. Liam made me feel safe, and I wanted to be as close to him as possible right now. He smiled, saying, "Are you sure?" I nodded my head. He walked back over to me. I reached my arms up and wrapped them around his neck. He picked me up from the bed. I wrapped my legs around him as well, clinging to him. He held me tight, burying his nose in my neck. We stayed like that, just standing next to the bed for a while, finding comfort in each other. After a bit, he pulled his head back and looked at me. Brushing my hair from my face, he said, "Let's get ready for bed." I loosened my grip, and he let me slowly slide down his tall frame. "Did you pack some pajamas?" he asked. "Yeah, they are in my bag in the car," I said, realizing I never brought my bag in this afternoon. "Nope, it's in here," he said, moving towards the closet. I followed him into a sizable walk-in closet. There was a dresser on each side, along with a small bench. There were also clothing rods with empty hangers along either side. On one of the benches sat my little suitcase. I walked over to it, opening it up. "We can unpack tomorrow if you want," he said, going over to what must be his own bag. "Okay," I said. "I guess we were going to be here for a little bit." I pulled out some pajamas and my toiletry bag and turned around to look at Liam. "I am going to change," I said. He nodded with a smirk. I left the closet and went to the bathroom. It was probably silly, but I couldn't undress in front of him without dying of embarrassment. I quickly changed into my pajama pants and t-shirt. Going over to the sinks, I dug out my toothbrush and toothpaste. After brushing my teeth, I pulled my now messy bun out of my hair and quickly twisted it into a loose braid. I grabbed a small dab of lotion, rubbing it into my face to help get rid of this ridiculous puffiness from all the tears. I looked at myself in the mirror, taking a deep breath. I needed to be stronger. I may not be a strong wolf, but I was an intelligent person. We would figure out who this was, and Liam would take care of them. I tried to convince myself that I didn't need to be afraid because Liam is an alpha and his pack is one of the strongest in the country. I put my things back in my toiletry bag, leaving it to the side of the counter, and exited the bathroom. Once in the bedroom, I looked around, not seeing Liam anywhere. I went to the closet and softly knocked. Opening the door, I didn't find him in there either. A wave of nervousness swept over me. Where did he go? "Liam!" I called, walking back out of the closet. I walked over to the bed and sat down. He wouldn't have left, and I was only in the bathroom for a few minutes. I rubbed my arms, trying to calm myself a bit. Luckily, I didn't have to wait long before Liam emerged through the bedroom door, carrying 2 bowls. "Good, you're ready." I thought since our dinner got interrupted, you might be hungry, he said, holding up the bowls in his hand. I had completely forgotten about our dinner. I wrapped up everything that was left in the kitchen and grabbed us some cereal. "I hope you like Cheerios," he said. I smiled at him. "Yes, I do." "Thank you," I said. He walked towards me and sat next to me on the bed, handing me one of the bowls. He immediately dug into his bowl. I giggled. "What's so funny?" he said, swallowing a large bite of food. "You," I said, simply taking a small bite of food. I smiled at him as I chewed. He just looked at me confused before going back to his food. We quickly finished our food. Liam grabbed my bowl and set them on the small dressing table by the door. Coming back over to the bed, he leaned over me and placed a soft kiss on my lips. "I am so glad I found you," he said quietly. "Me too," I said, smiling. "Oh, Liam!" I gasped. "No fair," I said, sitting up slightly as I straddled his hips. He chuckled at me. "Kitten, don't start things you can't finish," he said with a smirk. "Who said I couldn't?" I said, giving him a smirk back. "Oh, really?" he said, sitting up suddenly. His face was practically touching mine. He closed the distance between us. His hands found their way down to the hem of my shirt. Slowly he pulled it up and over my head. His hands moved over my body. My head fell back, enjoying his touch. I gasped, "Oh my goddess, Liam, I am so sorry!" I exclaimed. He looked up at me, his eyes impossibly black and his erection poking me almost painfully now. "Are you okay?" I asked warily. Liam stared at me for a moment. "Liam?" I asked again, not sure what was happening. His hands came to his face, his eyes closing. "Liam?" I said again, nervousness seeping into my voice. He shook his head a bit but still said nothing. I began to back away from him. This was a bad idea. "Liam." He brought a hand up to my mouth, wiping away the little blood that spilled from her bite. He looked at it, then at her. I could hear her apologizing, thinking she hurt me. I needed to get control back now. "Are you okay?" Azalea asked. He looked into her eyes. "Don't do it. Give me back control now," I shouted at him. "Why? You will never mate her. You will hurt her. She will be afraid of us. But she will be safe. We will be stronger, and we will always be able to feel her. And if she rejects us after you do that, it won't matter because she will be marked." We argued as Azalea slid off my lap, trying to get herself dressed. Finally, I removed my hands from my face as she was trying to pull her shirt back. Hey, I am okay. "Sorry if I worried you," I said, trying to calm her down. "What was that?" she asked nervously. I reached out and pulled her back over to me. "Nothing. Don't worry. But maybe we should take a break for tonight," I said. She nodded her head. I reached down, placing a chaste kiss on her lips. "Don't think I won't remember what you started, though," I whispered teasingly in her ear. She immediately went red in the face. I chuckled at her. I pulled her up towards the pillows, grabbing the blankets to keep her warm. I laid on my back as she settled herself atop my chest. "Good night, kitten," I said as her breathing evened out. "Good night, Liam," she whispered. Within minutes, she was asleep in my arms. That was too close for comfort. I needed to call my uncle in the morning about everything going on. Gavin had never been like this. I knew he didn't want to hurt our mate, but he was utterly disregarding what mating and marking her before she was ready would do to our bond. After everything, I didn't think I should leave her to go for a run. The rest of the audiobooks will be uploaded in the next episode. Join us on Patreon to listen to more unlimited audiobooks.